What's up, dudes? I got a wife that doesn't like to see me sitting around doing nothing, so she gets these little projects for me. Already, we've been married 3 months. October, November, December, January, February. 5 months. We've only been married 5 months. And yeah, this is like the 14th project I feel like I've done already. But I kind of like fiddling around with stuff. Last month she brought this bookcase home and sent me a video saying she wanted it to look like this. The video was how to blackwash. Never heard of blackwashing before. I've done whitewashing before. So basically where you take latex paint and mix it 50-50 with water. Basically just thinning the paint down, brushing it on light coat where you can see the wood or the paint, whatever's behind that coat of paint. This makes it look rusty. Well, blackwash in the video she sent me at least made it look a lot more complicated than what it really is. I don't even know why they call it blackwashing. You're staining it with black paint is what you're essentially doing. I did the bookcase. A lot of work as far as sanding because at one time she thought it was a good idea to spray paint this thing brown with Cryoline paint, rattle can paint. So a whole lot of sanding was involved in that project. This project right here is a chest, a wooden chest, and it's got like a medium stain on it. Looks like it's pine and like a coat of polyurethane or something. So it should not be as bad. Now this isn't going to be like a very thorough video. I'm not a professional whatsoever. I do enjoy woodworking, but like I said, the video that I watched was like 20 minutes long and a whole lot of steps. I'm not going to do that. I'm also not saying that you should avoid those steps. What I'm saying is if you got a little project you want to do, don't overthink it. It's not hard. If you feel comfortable staining something, you can blackwash it. Don't need very many tools to do this. So all you're really going to need is like some black paint, an old rag that you can throw away, a cheap brush that you can throw away, some sandpaper. I'm going to use a mouth sander, but you could sand it by hand. Depends on, you might not even have to sand it depending on what you're working on. And it's going to turn out good. I'm not going to seal this. The bookcase I did for her turned out really nice. We wanted it to look rustic and very flat looking, so I didn't put a coat of polyurethane on it. Only polyurethane I have is like satin and gloss, and I feel like that would kind of kill the rustic look of it. Same way with this chest right here. I'm not even going to do the inside. She said don't do the inside, and I said great, because that's less work for me. So we're just going to be doing the outside in the blackwash, make it look rustic. The only thing that might be hard in this process is if you're a perfectionist, because you're going to want to try to over sand it or get everything just perfect, and that kind of defeats the purpose of making something look rustic. You need your imperfections, you need your spots that you're going to show through with stain or paint or where you couldn't get the paint off. So don't overthink it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do now is get this thing out here. Super windy today. Probably going to coat her Jeep with dust. That's what she gets from making me do projects. Anyhow, I'm going to use a mouth sander and I'm going to use 80 grit. If you're worried about gouging the wood, you could do like a 120 or a 220. Just might take a little bit longer. I'm not trying to make this thing look perfect, so 80, even though that's pretty rough grit sandpaper, it's going to work for my purpose, what I'm using it for. Not, like I said, I can't stress this enough. I'm not trying to make this thing look perfect. It's going to look cool, it's going to look rustic, and it's going to be like minimal amount of work that I can do because I am lazy. All right, let's get to work. Well, we got this thing sanded down pretty good. Of course, you can still see that there's some stain left, and that's kind of how I want it. It was hard to get up in these cracks in the corners, but that's okay too, because when we put the black paint on and wipe it off, your paint's going to stay in these corners anyways. So that is perfectly fine. I was going to take the hinges off, but I decided not to. This chest right here, it's all beat up. It's got a lot of little dents and stuff in it from use over the years, and it's going to be perfect. Like I said earlier, we're not doing the inside, just the outside. I'm going to blow all the dust off with the air hose, and then we're going to wipe this thing down. All right, move this thing inside the garage after we got it blown off real good. And what I'm going to do now is take an old rag and wipe this whole thing down with mineral spirits. I hope I got enough. Looks like I might not. We're going to try to stretch it out. But this is what I got. That's what I'm going to use. I think like denatured alcohol would be a good choice, I believe. So, all right, go ahead and knock this out. All right, I've wiped this whole thing down with the mineral spirits, and I let it dry, make sure it was completely dry. Mineral spirits is kind of oily, so it takes a little bit longer to dry. So if you use something like denatured alcohol, you could probably do this a lot sooner, and not have to worry about waiting so long. But anyhow, it's dry, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint it. Now I'm just using Rust-Oleum Flat Black. This is an oil-based paint. I'll be putting it on with this little cheap brush. Now these things are, I mean, they work. If you're going to use one, before you use it, try to rip out any kind of loose bristles. That way they don't end up all in your paint. And I'm just using an old rag to wipe this thing down. You probably want to put some gloves on because you're going to get nasty. Alright, so basically what you're going to do is paint it, but you're going to want to try to stretch your paint out kind of far, like you're trying to put a light coat on. Make sure you get it in all the cracks. I would say you probably don't want to do this in the sun because your paint's going to want to dry up way too fast on you. That's why I'm doing this in the garage. Alright, might be, I don't know if it'll show up on here, but see how it's hazing up, looking like it's drying already? Don't freak out about that. It'll still wipe off. You don't have to really rush, but you don't want to do like a huge, like, you don't want to do this whole top before you start wiping it off. Like, do a little bit, let it sit, and then go ahead and start wiping it off. Like I said, just take your old rag and wipe it. Now if you wanted this to be a little bit darker, let it sit on there a little bit longer. I'm thinking I might want this just a little bit darker, so I'll go ahead and do the rest of this top before I start wiping it off. See if that darkens it up a little bit, but that looks pretty good. Your rag gets too saturated, just turn it inside out. Alright, looking pretty good. I'll go ahead and knock this out and show y'all guys what it looks like when I'm done. And if you get any spots where you don't want paint at, and it didn't come off the rag, just dip you another rag and a little bit of mineral spirits or whatever you use to clean it with. It'll come on out. Alright, I got a coat on all of it. As you see, you got some light spots and you got some dark spots. And that's how it's supposed to look. It's supposed to look rustic. It's supposed to look like they did it a long time ago. I mean, as long as you sand the wood like I did it, you'll have spots where it's taking more paint and spots that's not taking paint. Like I said, that's the look you're kind of going for, at least the look I'm going for, me and Amanda. Just want to make sure you didn't have any super dark spots. Like there's one dark spot right there on the bottom I'm gonna wipe, but the rest of it looks pretty good. We'll let this thing sit and cure for probably 2 or 3 days, and then I'll get it out in the sunlight so y'all can get a better look at it. I think it turned out pretty decent. This is as far as I'm going to take it. Now, if you are worried about, you know, it fading over time or getting scratched If it's going to be somewhere in the sunlight in your house, this is where you would put some kind of coat on it, like polyurethane or linseed oil would probably be good. If you're wanting to keep it flat, they do sell some flat polyurethanes. One called Flat Out Flat. I've never personally used it, but it's got really good reviews online, so I might pick up a can of that for my next project just to see how it is. But for our use with this thing, where it's going, I think it's going to be fine. The smarter thing to do would be to seal it. So if you want to jump in the comments and tell me that I know you need to seal that stuff, well, I know, but I'm not going to do it. So I don't know, sue me or whatever. I think it's going to be fine. But yes, the smarter thing to do would be to seal it. It'll last a lot longer. You know, avoid getting scratched up and fading over time. Anyhow, this is it. Hopefully this video helped some people out there. If you heard of blackwashing and you kind of felt like it was going to be too much for you, it's super easy. You're essentially staining with paint. I used oil-based paint for this. Can you use latex? I'm not sure. I'm sure a quick Google search will let you know. I would assume that oil-based is probably a little bit better, especially if you're not going to polyurethane it, because it's probably going to adhere a little bit better, I'm assuming. Anyhow, that's assuming. Do your own research. Like I said, super easy to do. If your wife is nagging you about doing it, just go ahead, bite the bullet, get it done. You need a project. We all need projects, especially this time of the year. It's like mid to late February. Fish aren't really biting good yet. Hunting season's over with. You got to stay busy somehow, so you might as well knock off some of them honeydews. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. See you on the next one.